All right, everybody. So, what we've gotten accomplished so far has been the easy part. Now things get a little bit more tricky. So, once again, just to recap, cover plate is on, holes drilled, slots drilled, heavy aluminum angle is in place underneath, minimal gaps around the fit between the cover plates and the vertical piece around this edge, vertical gap, vertical gap, minimal gap. Same underneath between the cap piece and the aluminum angle. In here, you want minimal gap. And now, with the holes match drilled, I've got this F757 piece in place, and it's clecoed, as you can see here, through the cover and through the aluminum angle underneath. So now the tricky part is this. I'm going to try to explain this best I can. Right now, this piece is attached to this vertical piece in effect, right? These pieces here are connected together, but this piece is not connected to the fuselage longeron or deck plate. So at this point, since there is no cross member here, this piece can rotate. You can see that there's some rotation here. And that is going to affect your edge distance on this piece when you try to put these holes in through here. These holes already exist, so you have to pay attention to your edge distance on this piece underneath where these holes are. Now, I'm not going to get the camera under here very well, but I'll give it a shot. So if you were to use a mirror, you can look up underneath here, which is what I do. I use a mirror a lot, but I can't really point anything out because I can't get my hand in here without blocking the camera view. But this plate up underneath, you want to look at your edge distance along the longeron here. And I don't know if that's going to come out because with all the reflections and the blue tape, I'm not really sure what I'm even looking at here. But I believe it's this edge distance in here, all through that piece. So on this side as well, this is the back side. It's this edge distance here that you need to pay close attention to. The other thing, let me reset this camera here. The other thing you want to be mindful of is you don't want a lot of twist in this piece. So as you're adjusting your edge distance here, you want to try not to put a lot of twist on this piece here. A nice guide that I've found is if you take the edge of this piece, this straight edge here, and line it up with the straight side piece of the cover. If you run these two here kind of parallel to one another, that will help keep things square. And again, with stuff just being clecoed, you've got a little bit of adjustment between these two pieces. So what I've done is I've set this relatively parallel to this piece here. And then with it clecoed together, I can go up underneath and take a look at my edge distance between this piece and this here. Like I said, you're kind of stuck with these because these are already drilled. But when you go to add these holes, you can put these wherever you want. There are dimensions given on the plans for where these holes go, but this is real world. So drill your holes as needed to maintain your edge distance on this piece and on your longeron here. So on the other side, those came out really close. I had to move these holes ever so slightly, especially the last one. I had to move it ever so slightly this way. I had to move it toward the center line of the airplane, but it was very minimal. So now at this point, with this fastened in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start transferring the holes that are already drilled. So I'm going to start matching these 5 holes into this piece. These couple here also get drilled into the cover plate, and I think one or both of these also captures the very edge of that aluminum bracket. But I'll be doing these one at a time. So I'm going to take these here and match them to this piece. Once that's done, I'll run clecos through here, and then one at a time I'll take the clecos out and I'll match drill through this into this, take it apart, drill it. I'll come back, cleco all of those together, and then do the last couple all the way through to pick up the heavy angle underneath. So I'm going to do those in layers rather than just coming through here and drilling everything at once. I just don't like to do that, because when you get into heavy material underneath, if you don't have perfect alignment here, you'll elongate these existing holes. So I just do it in steps, one piece at a time. So that's next. All right. I hope this is making sense. I hope it's useful. All right, everyone. So I went ahead and matched, or I didn't match drill, but I marked these 3 holes and these 2 holes that were already pre-drilled onto this plate here. Took it over to the drill press and drilled it. Now these 3 only go through the deck plate, the longeron, and this plate. So I went ahead and clecoed these 3. These 2 holes are now drilled through this plate, but now they have to be transferred to this cover piece. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to mark these 2 using a drill bit. I'll come down through the longeron, through this piece that I just drilled, and mark these 2 hole locations onto this cover piece. Take it apart, take this over to the drill press, drill it, bring it back, put everything back together, and then I believe I'll go through the longeron, this plate, this cover piece, and mark these 2 holes into the aluminum angle that's underneath here. Take everything apart, drill the aluminum angle, bring everything back, cleco everything together, and then I can start laying out these 3 holes. When you look at the plans, you'll see that they want you to add 3 more holes here to pick up the rest of this plate underneath here. So let me get some holes drilled and I'll start laying these out. All right, so next up, after you get the existing holes here match drilled to these new components that you've put in here, the next step is to lay out 3 additional holes as talked about in the I had talked about earlier, as shown in the plans. Now, having done that side already, I know that this piece, as it comes back through here, the edge distance gets a little bit more sketchy, if you will. So I went ahead and I laid out these 3 holes. I made mine 1.25 inches apart. So this hole is 1.25 inches from this existing hole, and then each of these are 1.25 inches apart. I measured the distance from the edge of the longeron to the center of this existing hole, and that was 5/16, I believe. So I made my 3 marks, 1.25 inches apart, 5/16 of an inch from the edge of the longeron. This one I center punched dead on. This one I center punched just a little bit inboard of that mark. And this one I center punched just a little bit more inboard from that mark, just to make sure that I maintain some kind of edge distance on this piece here, which is tucked up underneath the longeron. And these three, or these two, also pick up the cover part underneath this plate. So again, I want to make sure I have some decent edge distance on this. That's why I took these holes and moved them inboard a little bit. Now, as you can see, or as you have seen, there is a ton of rivets that go in this corner. So if the edge distance is marginal on this decorative cap, I don't really care. If it's marginal, these three, if it's marginal back here on this plate, I don't think that's much of a big deal either, just because it's going to be attached right here with rivets. These 5 here plus all of these. So, but you do what you can with what you have. So I just elected to move these holes inboard a little bit. I've got plenty of edge distance on the longeron. So I've got these pre-drilled into the longeron. Now I'm just going to match drill, or not match drill, but of course I'm going to come down and mark this plate, take the plate out, drill it, put the plate back, and then mark down through the longeron and this plate, which is now drilled, and mark the cover. And then I'll take everything apart, drill the cover, and at that point I'll deburr everything, edge finish, things like that, and then I can put the whole assembly back together. Another thing I wanted to cover real quick is when you put this all together, make sure that you have good clearance here. I may have talked about that already, but maybe I haven't. You don't want this piece to rub in here, either at the bottom, the top, the bottom, or on this front edge here. And one more thing, I had talked about this piece here potentially twisting. And a check I said was to lay this piece so that it's somewhat parallel with this piece, this edge here, parallel with this edge here. That's great to have these two lined up with one another, but this whole assembly can still twist. So what I do, and once again, I'll try to do this one-handed, I have a small piece of aluminum angle. And I take this and I lay it, take these two clecos out. Matter of fact, let me do that. All right, stand by one, everybody. Get these two clecos out of the way. I know it's probably making some of the motion sickness. It's motion sick with all the lousy camera work. All right, so now I take this aluminum angle and I lay it down up against the length of the deck plate, or the is that what this is called? I forget what it is. This deck rail here with all the clecos in it. I lay the aluminum up against it. And then with the aluminum held against this deck plate, it comes across here, and I could measure. Now I could measure from the edge of the aluminum here to the edge of the cover plate here. Yes, I know my finger's in the way. I'm trying to point it out to you. So you just measure from this edge of the angle to the edge of the cover plate. And take a measurement at this forward edge and take a measurement at this aft edge, and they should be very close. If they are, then this piece is not twisted. So here's another shot. So I've got the angle up against the length of the deck, and then I've got it laid on top of my piece here, and then I'll just take a measurement from the edge of the angle to the edge of the cover plate on a forward part and back here on the back part, and those two measurements should be roughly the same. If they are, then this piece here is basically parallel with this deck piece. So there's no twist. All right, more drilling. Talk to you guys soon.